Order! Order!
The ayes to the right, 269. The noes to the left, 305.
Thank you. The ayes to the right, 269. The noes to the left, 305. The noes have it. The noes have it. And look. The question is that Clause 5 as amended stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. With leave of the House, I will put the questions on Government Amendments 102 to 105 together. Minister to move forward.
I beg to move.
The question is the amendment be made. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that Clause 6 as amended stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that Clause 7 stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that Clause 8 stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. With leave of the House, I will put the questions on Government Amendments 106 and 107 together. Minister to move formally.
I beg to move.
The question is that the amendments be made. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that Clause 9 stand part of the bill, as amended, stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. We continue with Amendment 62 to Clause 10, with which it will be convenient to debate Amendments 21, 22 and 63 to 66 to Clause 10, and that Clause 10 stand part. Amendments 67 to 86, Government Amendments 108 to 110, and Amendments 87 to 89 to Clause 11, and that Clause 11 stand part. We now come to move Amendment 62. Joanna Cherry to move.
Thank you very much, Mr Hoyle. I rise to speak in favour of Amendments 62 and 67. Amendment 67 would have the effect of introducing into Clause 11 a subclause 1A, which would remove the Human Rights Act from the list of protected provisions in Schedule 4 of the Scotland Act 1998. Mr Chair, in the debate on the gracious speech, the Home Secretary confirmed that a bill will be brought forward to introduce a Bill of Rights and to repeal the Human Rights Act during the course of this Parliament. The Scottish National Party have consistently opposed repeal of the Human Rights Act. We won the election in Scotland, and therefore there is no mandate from the Scottish people for repeal of the Human Rights Act. Nonetheless, the Secretary of State for Scotland has confirmed, albeit on Radio Scotland, that repeal of the Human Rights Act will apply equally in Scotland as in England. At present, the Human Rights Act is listed as a protected provision in Schedule 4 to the Scotland Act of 1998, and that means that the Scottish Parliament cannot at present modify the Human Rights Act. The effect of Amendment 67 would be to change that. Mr Chair, the UK Government has not been clear on how potential changes to the United Kingdom's relationship with the European Convention on Human Rights and the abolition of the Human Rights Act could impact upon the place of the European Convention on Human Rights in Scotland's constitutional settlement. And this is important because the European Convention on Human Rights is entrenched in the Scotland Act of 1998. For example, Section 29, subsection 2D provides that a provision which is incompatible with the ECHR is out with the legislative competence of the Scottish Parliament. And Section 57, subsection 2 of the 1998 Act provides that a member of the Scottish Government has no power to make any subordinate legislation or to do any act insofar as that would be incompatible with the ECHR. And neither of these sections would be changed by simple repeal of the Human Rights Act alone. So we therefore can see that human rights are not specifically a reserved matter, they are partially devolved. And so we on this side of the House in the Scottish National Party would also argue that any repeal of the Human Rights Act without first consulting the Scottish Parliament would violate the Sewell Convention, whereby the Westminster Government will not normally legislate with regard to devolved matters without the consent of the Scottish Parliament. Mr Chair, matters are further complicated because the Smith Commission proposals and the draft clauses of this bill propose putting the Sewell Convention on a legislative footing. So therefore, the issue arises of a very real clash, the prospect of a very real clash between the United Kingdom Government commitment to revise and reduce the role of the ECHR in United Kingdom law and also its commitment to the Scottish electorate to implement the vow. So there really is a real possibility of a clash here between the Scottish and the Westminster Parliament. I think it's worth pausing at this stage to look at the realities of human rights in the United Kingdom and why human rights matter. Mr Chair, as I said in my maiden speech, in actual fact the United Kingdom loses very few of the cases that are brought against it in Strasbourg. And the United Kingdom once had a proud tradition of leading in Europe on human rights. And the United Kingdom was elected to membership of the United Nations Human Rights Council in 2014 on a prospectus claiming that it was, and I quote, a passionate, committed and effective defender of human rights. Repealing the Human Rights Act would not really live up to that claim and would send out all the wrong signals. And as the Right Honourable Member for Beaconsfield said in 2014, proposals to repeal the Human Rights Act represent, and I quote, a failure of ambition on the global promotion of human rights. Mr Chair, human rights matter to ordinary people in this country, and those who have benefited from the Human Rights Act include victims of domestic violence, who've been able to get better protection, and victims of rape who've used the Human Rights Act to ensure that the police properly investigate offences. LGBTI people have also used human rights to overcome discrimination in this country. And the families of military personnel killed on active service because the Ministry of Defence supplied them with outdated equipment have also benefited under the Human Rights Act. So these rights are very real for ordinary United Kingdom citizens. In Scotland, we have a National Action Plan for Human Rights, which has been co-produced in partnership with wider civil society. We have a United Nations accredited Scottish Human Rights Commission, which is internationally acknowledged as one of the world's best. And as I said in my maiden speech, our commitment to human rights in Scotland extends not just to the ECHR rights, but also beyond that to socio and economic rights. In Scotland, through our work on social justice and challenges such as fair work, we are intent on ensuring people in Scotland can enjoy their economic, social and cultural human rights. And Scotland is also a world leader in its work to give full effect to the rights of children. We are very proud of that record in Scotland and we wish to protect it. So hence the reason for this amendment, which, as I said, would have the effect of removing the Human Rights Act 1998 from the list of particular enactments that cannot be modified by the Scottish Parliament, so that if the Scottish Parliament were able to modify the Human Rights Act, this would allow the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament to establish a human rights regime in Scotland, regardless of whether the Human Rights Act was repealed by the UK Parliament. I would hasten to add at this stage that, as our First Minister has said, the SNP are committed to opposing the repeal of the Human Rights Act for the whole of the UK and not just for Scotland. But they are, in the unfortunate event that the Human Rights Act is repealed for the whole of the UK, this amendment would enable us to do something about it, at least in Scotland. And that is a position which has the overwhelming support of the Scottish electorate, as evidenced by the 56 out of 59 MPs sitting beside and behind me. Thank you, Mr Chair.
That the amendment be made. In my Alistair Carmichael.
I will not detain the House as the hour is pressing. My name stands in relation to Amendments 21 and 22, which again were offered originally by the Law Society of Scotland. The two issues that they deal with are fairly short in their compass. They're not intended to be pressed to division, but I will be interested to have the Minister's answer to them for the purposes of it being on the record. In relation to Amendment 21, that would include the parliamentary term of the Scottish Parliament within the provisions that can only be altered by way of a supermajority, and the same would be true then in relation to the boundaries under Amendment 22. As the Law Society of Scotland put it, it's their wish that this should not be able to be influenced in a simple majority merely for political advantage. The more substantive amendment, though, is that which has been moved by the Honourable Leonard lady from Edinburgh South West, and there was virtually nothing in her speech there about the role of the Human Rights Act in Scotland and the integral nature of it to the constitutional furniture that created and maintains the Scottish Parliament, with which I would disagree. It is a matter of significant importance. I would say to the Government from the front bench that the way in which the difficulties that they will create themselves if they are to go ahead with the abolition of the Human Rights Act for the rest of the United Kingdom in relation to the Scottish Parliament and also to the Northern Ireland Assembly, it would be simply not to do it in the first place. They risk creating a constitutional mess. They risk leaving us in a situation where within one United Kingdom we would have different standards of human rights, different practices, a different body of jurisprudence. I see no advantage to the people of Scotland or to the people of the rest of the United Kingdom from meddling in that way, and I hope that the Government will listen to the wise words of the Honourable and Learned Lady.